Welcome to episode 2 of Becoming Bob. I'm Alex, and this is my journey to become more like Bob Ross, primarily by painting along with the joy of painting. In this episode, I'll be painting along with episode 2, series 1 of the joy of painting, and I hope you'll join me as I do my best to keep up with Bob. I had a little trouble keeping up with him in the first episode, which if you haven't seen it, I'd recommend checking out here. And to try and help me focus on painting this time, I'm going to go ahead and do a voiceover for any commentary that I have for this episode. If you haven't seen episode 2 of The Joy of Painting, I'd recommend checking it out here before watching this episode so that you can see just what I'm following along with. I'd like to thank all those who have supported me so far in my Indiegogo campaign, as your support is what's got me here to the second episode. Without your help, I could never have gotten here, and if you'd like to help me get further, then I'd ask that you please visit my Indiegogo campaign through the link in the description below and see how you can help me become Bob. So without further ado, I think I'll get painting. So let's do this. Okay, so like I said in the intro, I will be doing all the commentary in this voiceover. Paying attention and commenting at the same time is really tough. Bob goes really fast and you really have to focus in order to keep up with him. You may have noticed here that I went straight into color. I've added magic white before the episode. Bob did the same thing in The Joy of Painting. I really think that helped. It helped me get it on a lot evener. A better coating over the whole canvas, but not too much. I think the amount of liquid white on there really makes a difference. But you'll see that putting it on before the episode did cause me a little trouble later. You can see that I'm going all different directions with the brush there. Bob's real adamant that you go in all kinds of different directions when you're doing the sky if you want to achieve a natural look. If you do it all in the same direction, then you end up with a real monotone sky that doesn't have any depth to it. That sky color is a mix of phthalo green and Prussian blue. Just a touch of the phthalo green. It really is pretty strong color. Just kind of blending it all in there. The 2-inch brush. All the paint on the brush there is paint that I've just picked up from blending here. Loading up this time with a little extra green to make the water a little greener. I'd really wish I had brought the sky down a little bit lower on the canvas. You'll see later as I do the painting that the sky just doesn't seem to come quite far enough down. And I think in the future that's something I'm going to be a little bit more aware of. Got a little hair there. Giving the brush a good washing. You've got to keep these brushes pretty clean, and this method really does work. The paint thinner gets most of the paint off. The shaking, and then of course beating the devil out finishes it up. You can see there my earbud popped out. Move the trash can there. Fix my earbud again. I'm watching, you can see me looking there at the screen. I'm watching the screen just off camera there. I'm doing my best to follow along. I am watching at real-time speed and just doing my best to keep up. The audio, of course, coming into me to that earbud there. Using the number 6 fan brush there. First time using a fan brush. Did not hold as much paint as I was expecting, and you can see me reloading it quite a bit here. But I'm just trying to dance it around and really kind of work the paint into the canvas. Kind of distinguish where the tops of the clouds are going to be. And it also shows where that light source is coming from, which in this painting is somewhere towards the top and center. Once I have the white on there, I go back in with the 2-inch brush, fluff it around a little bit, give it the look as though there's some high altitude winds blowing it around. Knock off a little extra paint there. I'd like to go ahead and give a shout out to one of our associate producers, Nathan. Nathan's a really good friend of mine. He's been a good friend of mine for many years, and it's just awesome to see him support Becoming Bob. Not only is he supporting me in my Indiegogo campaign, but he's also had some pretty good ideas for the show. For instance, this voiceover. This was his suggestion, and I think it's a great idea. Thanks, Nate. It really means a lot to have you on my team, and yeah, just thanks. Bob spends a lot of time on his skies, and I think that's one of the reasons why his paintings look so good. It's because he puts a lot of detail and time and effort into each one of the skies. Little straggler cloud there. You can see I tried a little different location with the microphone. It's right up at the top of the easel there. Clipped into a clothespin. I wanted to pick up the sounds of me painting, but we'll get quite so much of the breathing. And since I wasn't planning on doing the commentary until afterward anyways, I figured that was probably a good spot for it. Of course, other changes to the setup here. You've got the black background there. I've added some supports. You can see the strap there on the easel. That really makes it a lot sturdier. It's pretty shaky in the first episode. Oh, there goes my earbud again. Making a mix now of the Prussian blue, Van Dyke brown, Alizarin crimson, and a little sap green. Trying to mix it up, but not mix it completely up. And here we go. My very first mountain. Which in this case is Mount McKinley. Well, it's supposed to be anyways. Bob does Mount McKinley. I do my best. Okay, start out with the palette knife there on the mountain and then go in with the 2-inch brush to kind of drag everything out. Trying to pay attention at this point to how I'm pulling it out to kind of determine how the slope goes on the mountain there. And much like with the sky, I kind of wish I had brought it down a little bit further. Alright, back to the palette knife. I'm mixing up some white and some blue. A little bit of brown too. I was saying earlier that doing the magic white beforehand kind of was a problem in this episode, and what had happened is that I put on the magic white and then I set down the container outside of arm's reach, only to realize once I got started that you need to have that magic white in order to thin out your colors to make them stick better in the higher layers. And so for this painting I did it without having that magic white and just trying to get the colors to stick on their own. Let you be the judge of how well I did. Working with that knife is pretty hard. It's kind of like icing a cake. It really feels like that a lot, and I don't have very much experience icing cakes, so it's hard to control how much paint you have on the knife and how much paint's coming off the knife onto the canvas. Sometimes you'll have a lot stick and it just pulls right off the knife. Sometimes you really kind of have to scrape it in there. Doing my best to kind of get an even amount of paint on there, but still letting it break some to give kind of the natural dark spaces where the rock shows through the snow. Trying to get plenty of shadow in there because every light spot needs to have some shadow in order to really pop and have that three-dimensional appearance. And every time you use that knife there on a mountain or any kind of terrain, you're moving things around, you're bridging gaps, you're making ridges. It's kind of interesting to see. Going back in with the 2-inch brush, adding some mist at the base of the mountain there. You'll notice I stick my tongue out a lot when I'm concentrating. There's nothing I can do to not do that. Pulling it up to simulate the effect of the wind. Alright, and I'm back mixing up a few colors here. More of the Prussian blue, Van Dyke brown, sap green, and alizarin crimson mix there. It's a really dark mix and it looks almost black. And back in, there's a ridge of foothills that's kind of more in the foreground than the mountain. Funny, when you're really close up like this to the canvas, everything looks a lot different. Things look bigger, things look messier. You can't see the effect as well.
It's important, I think, to get the brushes clean and then set them down and give them a minute to kind of dry out. I think that helps a lot, especially with that 2-inch brush, because you're using it so much for blending and it needs to be good and dry when you start blending. One of the issues I had with the knife is, especially when putting on the snow, is I'd go in with the nice thing with some white in there, start putting the white on, and pick up a bunch of black, which I then would take back to the palette and muddle up the rest of the white with. Fortunately, muddling colors is kind of the idea with some of this technique. By not mixing colors completely, you get the streaks, you get the kind of effects you're going for. It adds a lot of complexity without adding a whole lot of work. Got the 1-inch brush there. Starting to add in some dark stuff for some trees way off in the distance. Mix with some phthalo green, some of the Prussian blue and the crimson and sap green, Van Dyke brown mix. There's the 2-inch, put in some reflections. Sweeping them across, give them a watery look. And that's really when I realized that I didn't have my magic white, was just then. You could see me looking around for it and doing my best to kind of mix up some yellow and red and orange to give some highlights to that foliage off in the distance there. You can see it's really not sticking as well as I would like. Bob says a lot of thinner paint sticks to a thick paint, and that's the truth. If I'd had that magic white to thin it down with some, I wouldn't be having quite as much issue with it transferring onto the canvas. And going back in to add that yellow color into the reflection there. I mentioned it in the first episode, but the water really is my favorite part. Just the whole effect of having the reflections and just the sky colors reflected in it. It always turns out looking good. At least when Bob does it. So far mine's been alright. Mixing up some more colors there. This time a nice dark green. Dark green. Which I'll then load up on my fan brush there. And it's time to start some evergreen trees. Now this is my second painting, but I have watched quite a bit of Bob Ross over the past few years and throughout my whole life, but this evergreen tree technique is one he uses a lot, and although this is my first time doing it, I think it turned out pretty good because I've seen him do it so many times, making little what he calls zigzag trees. You can kind of see my brush doing a zigzag pattern back and forth there, letting the bristles bend to create the effect of the limbs. A little bit more color here. At this point I was kind of going for a sandy color with some white, yellow, and brown. Mine was not looking very sandy, but that's okay. Soil comes in all kinds of different colors. And I got mine fairly white. Scratching a few little twigs in the back there. Try and cut in that water line some more. Clean off the knife and come back to the fan brush. Make a little bigger tree here. Doing my best to keep the perspective of the trees coming around the side of that lake there. And now here's a big one on this side. All right, and then let's give him a friend here. And Three's Company. Give these guys a little bit of a lean. They used to all be close together when they were young, but they've kind of grown apart as they've gotten older. And now it's time to add lots of dark color as fast as I can, because I'm trying to catch up with Bob. And some more reflections. Cross for that ripple effect. Going back in for some more bright colored foliage. Some nice orange and red in that one. Yeah, it's just not sticking as well as I would have liked without that magic white in there. And I use the terms magic white and liquid white interchangeably in these early seasons. Bob refers to it as magic white, but eventually he started just calling it liquid white, and that's what the product's referred to today. Now the two cameras I used for this are both cell phones. My cell phone being a Samsung Galaxy 6 and my wife's Google Pixel. I think it's a Pixel 2 maybe. But either way, making the most of the resources I have available. And that's the idea behind the Indiegogo campaign too, really, is to maybe get some nicer resources to make some better results. And filling in space as fast as I can. This video has not been sped up in any way. I am just filling in space as fast as possible. Probably should have had my evergreen trees a little closer to the edges of the canvas to take up some more of that side space, but like I was saying, when you're up close to the canvas, things look a lot different. Things look a lot bigger, they look a lot farther apart. It really skews how you look at a painting. You may have noticed, but I've actually got two 1-inch brushes going. I've got the dark color brush there, and I've got the lighter highlight yellow and orange color brush. Bob's also doing that. He's got two different 1-inch brushes. I checked to see because I noticed he switched pretty quick in the episode when I was doing a quick watch through of it beforehand. And I'm glad I caught that. Having to clean off the brush every time I switch between the dark and the light colors with the 1-inch brush in this would have really made it hard to keep up. Not that I was keeping up by this point anyways. At this point I'm probably a good minute and a half behind where Bob is in his painting. I've got the fan brush and I'm getting some highlight color on that one. Some nice yellowish green color. And going in and adding some light, some highlights to these evergreen trees here. And I'm doing my best to keep the highlights that I'm putting on there on the right side for where the light's coming from, which, being that it's kind of top and center on this painting, that means on the right side of the trees on the left side, and on the left side of the trees on the right side. And back in with my 1-inch highlighter. Mix up a little bit more color. Lots and lots of highlighting to do at this point, so I'm trying to go pretty quick. It's good to vary up your highlighting though, and not try to put it all in as one big blob. Otherwise it looks like one big blob and not a bunch of individual shrubs and bushes. You can see I'm trying to vary up the colors there. And I don't know if it's these particular canvases I've been using or what, but this one seems kind of loose. I feel like it was really shaking around there when I was highlighting away. I don't know if maybe using different canvases will give me a different result on that. Mix up a little bit more of my ground color and going in. Just doing my best to cut in a little bank there. Yeah, you can see I was going to try and scrape some of that paint off. I decided not to. I'm glad I didn't. It probably would have smeared and looked really bad. And few highlights. Pretty happy with it. Just looking over it here. And you know, that's not too bad. So, I think I'm going to call this a completed painting. Go ahead and get my script liner there and some linseed oil, mix it in with my permanent red for my signature. Thanks a lot for watching. This is episode 2 of Becoming Bob. I'm Alex, and I hope you enjoyed watching this as much as I enjoyed making it. If you really liked it, like and subscribe to the page here on YouTube for upcoming videos. There's going to be at least 2 more of these episodes coming, thanks to my Indiegogo contributors. And if you really want to help, you should become an Indiegogo contributor too. The link's in the description below, and any help you can give is much appreciated. I couldn't have gotten this far without the help I've gotten from Indiegogo, and any help from you would just get me that much further. So thanks for watching, and have a great day.